Trudeau has been removed as the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada by Conservative MPs. I believe it was 73 out of 30 something or whatever. They decided they're done with him. You get out of here, boy. You had your chance. And I agree. Hallelujah. And boom, shakalaka goes right there. Erin Trudeau, as you guys know him, Erin O'Toole, you know, people say that he was thrown out because he was a red Tory, a liberal conservative. You want to know the reason why I support him leaving? Not because he's a left-wing conservative, though I believe that left-wing conservatives are cucks, and I have no time for them. I'm an independent, first of all. I don't belong to any party, but you know, I usually vote conservative because I consider myself conservative-minded, but I'm also a populist. I'm a populist conservative who belongs to no party. But you know, that's not the reason. I don't have any time for you cuck conservatives, or that's what I call left-wing conservatives. But Erin O'Toole is a double-crossing liar, and he knows it. Erin O'Toole, when he was running for leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, clearly stated that he was a true blue conservative. He was going to get rid of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is just run by a bunch of left-wing globalists who are biased against conservatives, and we're paying taxes to it, state-run broadcaster. He said he was going to scrap that. They have to fend for themselves like CTV does and Global and all these other media, even though they're not really fending for themselves because they're getting a lot of tax dollars from the government. But you know what I mean? They have to be, it can't be run by the government anymore. We can't have a left-wing globalist propaganda machine that's owned by the government and we have to pay taxes to it. He said he was going to privatize, get rid of the CBC, make it be a private corporation. He said he was going to get rid of Justin Trudeau's assault weapons ban. He said there was going to be no carbon tax, or at least he didn't say anything about a carbon tax. And he knows that if he had said anything about having his own carbon tax when running for leader, he knows he would have lost, rightfully so, because conservatives, unlike liberals and socialists, are smart enough to know that a carbon tax is not only harmful to businesses and harmful to jobs and harmful for our wallets because we pay more for things, but it's also counterproductive at helping with cleaning up our environment, because what will happen is that these fossil fuel companies will just move to places like China, where China just lets them let rip with the environment. And what good is that for us? We not only lose our jobs, but they spew even more carbon into the atmosphere. And as a result, the environment gets even worse because they leave Canada and they go to places like China, where they can do whatever they want, and then the environment just gets worse. In fact, that's why I believe our environment is so bad, not because of Canada or America or Europe. Those, according to the statistics, are the cleanest countries in the world. But we're throwing away our fossil fuel jobs to China. And that's a blessing for them, because they can just spew even more carbon. At least here we have certain regulations that they have to follow. They have to do all sorts of stuff. So, but then they go to China. You go to China right now, it's black. You can't see your own hand in front of you because the smog. People have said that when they come back from China, they have to take up smoking because they're not used to the clean air when they come back. So that's why a carbon tax is rubbish, because these businesses will say, I ain't paying that. You can stick that tax up your ass. I'm going to move to China. So, and so he said he wasn't going to do it, or he never said anything about a carbon tax. But then when Erin O'Toole became leader, he completely went back on his promise to get rid of the CBC. He said he would make a review of the CBC. He deliberately went back on his promise to get rid of Justin the tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau's assault weapons ban. And he says he's going to have his own carbon tax. And then he also said he was going to have 10 more years of deficits. Or what he did say was that he wasn't going to cut back on Trudeau's spending, but that he was going to make sure that the budget was balanced in the next election, saying that thinking that budgets balance themselves. So that's why I called him ARANA Trudeau, because there was no difference between him and Trudeau on the fundamental issues facing us. And on top of that, he supported vaccine mandates, or at the very least, what he did say was that I support, if you don't get a vaccine, you have to be bombarded with testing every day or every week. So, and Aaron O'Toole knows what he did. He was one thing in the leadership election, and then he deliberately said, you know what, forget everything I said, I'm gonna do this, the exact opposite. You know, I understand that people say, you know, in the leadership election, you run more onto the right and then you go to the center. But what you're not supposed to do is be a textbook definition example of a politician by saying that you're going to do one thing in the leadership election and then deliberately say you're going to do the opposite thing when you're now leader, when you know that if you said that when you were running for the leadership, you would have lost, rightfully so. So Aaron O'Toole, I'm glad he's gone, not because he's a left-wing conservative, though that is a big thing. So I have no time for them, conservatives, but he's also a liar and his credibility is totally ruined. And in an age where I don't trust any of these Canadian politicians, and when I think that Canada has become one of the most corrupt countries in the world, a country where we don't even count 16% of the ballots that are mailed in, I don't want another lying sack of garbage as prime minister like Aaron O'Toole. So I'm glad he's gone. But many people now have been talking about a man by the name of Pierre Poilievre. Now, Pierre Poilievre is the MP for, I believe it is Nepean, Carleton, one of those Ottawa area ridings, Pierre Poilievre. And people have also been talking about Leslyn Lewis, the Black lady, she's a lawyer from the Scarborough area, and she's now MP for Haldimand, Norfolk. And by the way, Candice Bergen is now the interim leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And people have been wondering, you know, what do I think about Pierre Poilievre? What do I think about Leslyn Lewis? All this sort of stuff. My thing about Pierre Poilievre, because that's the name that comes up the most. That's what most people have been saying they want. They want Pierre. They want Pierre. I am cautiously optimistic about Pierre Poilievre. I'm cautiously optimistic about all these conservatives, but I'm cautiously optimistic about Pierre Poilievre. It would be nice to get somebody who was outside of the inner circle, who was not an MP, maybe somebody from the outside who's not an MP to run for leader. But I'm cautiously optimistic about Pierre Poilievre. And the reason I say this is because conservative politicians have irked me so much to the point where I am very, very wary about them before I go all in on them. And I'm speaking as an independent who voted. Listen, I don't belong to the Conservative Party, even though I do vote for the Conservatives, because, you know, I'm an independent populist conservative, and they usually are the ones that speak to my values the most. But I could easily go for another party because I don't belong to any party. I'm a free man. I'm not loyal to any party. I've always said that the only party I would ever be loyal to is the one I'm leader of. And I could easily go vote for any other party as long as they go with my values. I don't think I could ever vote Liberal anytime soon because they don't seem to be talking about my values anytime soon, but it could happen. Last time I went for Maxime Bernier. And And I like what Maxime Bernier said yesterday. He said he's not going anywhere, and I agree with him. Now, could I vote for Pierre Poilievre? Yes, I could. I could. He's not unacceptable, like some of them. Michael Chong, I could never vote for. Aaron O'Toole, I could never vote for. Could I vote for Pierre Poilievre? Could I vote for the Conservatives with Pierre Poilievre as leader? Yes, I could. Because Pierre Poilievre is smart. Pierre Poilievre is well-spoken. He's tough. He is tough on the Mac Daddy. He would whoop the Mac Daddy in a debate. I have seen Pierre Poilievre give Justin the tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau a whooping in Parliament. Whoop him! Pull down his pants, peel down his underwear, whoop him! Hypothetically speaking. Pierre Poilievre whoops Trudeau. Trudeau is shaking in his boots. And I think Pierre Poilievre would win. If Pierre Poilievre decides to run for leader, he would win, I believe. And I think he would become the next prime minister. As I said, he's very well-spoken. He's very tough. He's very articulate. He's witty. Just the tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau, who just stumbles all the way and says all the time and can't string along two sentences without a teleprompter. I mean, he acts like Joe Biden. Pierre Poilievre would whoop him. But will I vote for Pierre Poilievre? I have to wait and see. I have to wait and see. And I'm glad that PPC is not going anywhere so that they can stick around and always keep the Conservatives in check. And if they mess up, PPC comes back. You know, and don't give me any nonsense about a vote for PPC as a vote for Liberal. Because if we have if the Conservatives have a Liberal for their leader, then there is no difference. It's like voting for, as I said, you know, Trudeau was going to win last year's election anyway. It was just a question of Justin Trudeau or Aaron O'Trudeau. So don't give me nonsense about blah, 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 blah. Shut up. PPC, stay there to keep them in check. What I'm most concerned about is that I don't know if Pierre Poilievre really believes in the freedom movement. I don't know. He says he does because it's now fashionable to do so. He's supporting our truckers. He's making speeches about our truckers, which is good. But as far as I've seen, I've not heard him speak up about it when we were. I mean, listen. I am so proud that I was one of the few people in the world who saw this virus for what it was from the start. I was never talking about we should lock down. I was never talking about all this stuff from the start. And I understand not everybody's as smart as the people who saw this for what it was in the beginning, like Maxime Bernier, myself, Ron Paul, and others. I mean, I even heard some stuff from InfoWars talking about this virus is serious, and blah, 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 you know, but okay, a lot of people have turned against it now quickly. But Pierre Poilievre, I believe he voted for some of these mandates until very recently. And now that the truckers are in town, he's now shifted and he's strong for the truckers. But I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that all of the Conservatives voted for the mask mandates. All of the Conservatives were supporting lockdowns, all of them, every single one of them. And I understand, you know, not everyone is as smart as us. But, you know, I had given Doug Ford an ultimatum, and I told him, if you don't stop this by August of 2020, I'm not going to support you ever. I don't care if you decide you're going to go all in and support the freedom movement. No, I gave him an ultimatum because I saw this for what it was. It was becoming clear that this was a virus that only killed less than 1% of people who got it. Sweden didn't lock down at the time and their population was just fine. Same with Japan. I was saying those things when everybody was against me. And I saw this for what it was. And these politicians, I saw it, they were using this thing for their own benefit. And I don't know if Pierre Poilievre was with us, even if it wasn't from the start, but early enough where I could give him some credibility. But now he's come out and said he's all for the Trump, he's all for ending the mandates because it's fashionable now, because we've come into Ottawa now. What would happen if there was no truckers? Would he still be, you know, just keeping his mouth shut about our freedoms being taken away? That's why I'm skeptical. Now, I could still vote for it. I could still support. I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, so I can't vote in the leadership, and I don't want to vote. So, I could still support Pierre Poilievre. I'm leaning towards supporting him if he becomes leader and he's leader during the election. I'm leaning towards supporting him, but I'm not just going to go all in and say, yeah, he's my guy, because I made that mistake with Doug Ford. I ain't doing it again. I made that mistake with Boris Johnson. And I actually, I don't consider it a mistake for me that I endorsed Doug Ford in 2018. That's not a mistake. Nothing is a mistake. I don't see mistakes. Doug Ford was useful at the time, and now he's not useful anymore. Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom was useful at the time, getting Brexit done. Now he's not useful because he's a lying, hypocritical sack of garbage. Maxime Bernier is useful. He may not be useful 2 or 3 years down the line. I'm a free man. I'm a free voter. I'll vote for whoever I think suits my interests, or not my interests, but what I believe to be the right path forward the most, and who also has the most chance of either winning an election or winning candidates in ridings. I'm not going to vote for a party that's only, putting in 2 people in all of the 700 ridings in Canada, or however many ridings there are in Canada, and you're just putting in 2 people. No, I won't vote for you because you're not putting in the effort. So that's my stance on Pierre Poilievre and all of these conservatives, is I'm cautiously optimistic. And also, there's a war. All these politicians now are trying to jump on Russia and start war with Russia and all this stuff. Now, you all know me. I'm a non-interventionist. That doesn't mean I'm a pacifist, but I'm a non-interventionist. I believe we should only go to war if we are threatened, not if Ukraine is threatened. Ukraine is not a province of Canada. And a lot of these conservatives, all of them, liberals, socialists, and conservatives, are talking like warmongers, especially in the United States. Biden is talking like a warmonger. Trump is talking like a warmonger. All those Republican and Democrat senators are acting like warmongers, talking about they want to go after Russia. We're going to go after Russia. We're going to go after Russia. Let him try and invade Ukraine. We're going after Russia. Try asking Napoleon and Hitler what happened to their empires, which were very large at the time and powerful. What did Russia do to their empires? I'd go on into Russia and see what will happen to you. Go on. And I'm not saying that because I like Putin, because I do like Putin. I would say the same thing. These politicians, they've been talking about wanting to go to war with China over Taiwan. I'm not interested in Taiwan. I'm interested in Canada. That's what I'm interested in. If China wants to invade Canada, then we'll have a war. But if they want to invade Taiwan, that's their business. Taiwan needs to learn to defend itself. Israel needs to learn to defend itself. Ukraine needs to learn to defend itself. Otherwise, we can take over those countries and we can make them a province. I'm fine with that. I'll take you. We'll take you. You can be a territory if you want. If Ukraine, and I think Pierre Poilievre is probably in that position too. We're going to go after Russia. We're going to go after Russia. I know that we need to do we need a little bit more time to educate our politicians on the beautifulness of non-interventionism and not taking our sons and daughters, usually from poorer neighborhoods, into wars to fight other countries. And to make matters worse, a lot of these politicians who are asking for war have never even seen a military uniform before. Justin the tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau, what's he doing talking about Russia and Ukraine? We'll defend Ukraine if their sovereignty is threatened. Justin the tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau has never fought in any war. He's never fought in any war. His father's even worse. His father not only didn't fight in a war, his father was a Nazi sympathizer who was against going to war, whether rightly or wrongly, because I believe he was also a non-interventionist. But Pierre Trudeau took it one step further and actually was riding around in Montreal with a Nazi uniform on, and there's pictures of that, with him riding around in Montreal with a Nazi uniform on, because he was protesting Canada's involvement in World War II. There he is, Pierre Trudeau, protesting with a Nazi uniform on. You know, I'm a non-interventionist, but I would never dress up in a Russian uniform or a Chinese uniform to say that solidarity, let's stop going. No. And now his son is there threatening to go to war, taking us to go fight Russia. And he never fought in any war. He was a drama teacher, touching children, allegedly. And his father was a Nazi sympathizer. When he was drafted, or when it was his time to serve, he not only didn't serve, he dressed up in a Nazi uniform, riding around in Montreal. And I believe Pierre Poilievre wasn't in the military either. Aaron O'Toole, with all his faults, at least he served. So he has, even though I don't agree with him either on going to war with Russia, at least he served. I'm sick and tired of all these politicians who talk about, let's kick butt, let's go to war with Russia, let's go to war with China, let's go to war with Iran, let's go to war with Iraq, and none of them have ever served. Shut up. You want to send poor children from ghettos in Hamilton, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Native Indian children from reserves to go fight Russia, and you've never served, Pierre Poilievre, none of y'all. So I could vote for Pierre Poilievre. Yes, I could, absolutely. He's very smart. He stands with the truckers. He stands against mandates now, even though it's late, better late than never. He stands with us, and he's very smart. He's articulate. He would whoop the Mac Daddy in a debate. He's fiscally conservative. So, you know, those are good. And I believe he's talking a good game with populism. So that's good. I could support him. But will I? I have to wait and see. At any rate, I want the PPC to stick around, don't go anywhere, so that if the conservatives make even the slightest mistake, we go back to PPC. This is